organization, we founded it back in early this year in the wake of the 2017 election. We had been, several of us had been active in the campaign with the party and with the campaigns, and we observed that, really since 2009, there has been a trend away from Republicans in suburban areas. I live in Centerville, which is in western Fairfax County. We have other members of our group that are within Fairfax County, Loudoun County, etc. We all have, different political views on particular issues here, and we don't agree on everything. But I can tell you that we all observe the trend away from the Republicans in the suburbs. And this is a trend that we thought predated, Donald Trump's election as president. A lot of people talk about, oh, there's this Trump effect. Well, if you look carefully, you can see that this actually has been going on for some time. So this is not necessarily a question of pro-Trump or anti-Trump. I think, most of us are supportive of the president. But I think that, this is a trend of long-standing that continues, and so we wanted to address it. So we formed a federal PAC whose goal was quite simply to improve our standing in suburban Virginia with suburban voters. And we had two tasks that we wanted, two specific questions that we posed. The first was, what was the issues that motivate suburban voters? We wanted to find out what suburban voters care about. And the second thing we wanted to know was, how can we reach suburban voters with our Republican views and our Republican thoughts and our Republican positions? So once we formed the PAC, we broke our work up into 3 phases. And you can see there are 3 phases on the screen. In the first phase, I'm going to let Jill Cook talk to you a little bit about what we did in that very first phase.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for being here today. So we started out early in April, basically reaching out to the voters in all the suburban areas that we are operating in. And we focused on door knocking first, and we, along with the questionnaire with the RPB, we asked the question, we opened it up to the voter who answered our knocks at the door, or wherever we encountered them, what issues were important to them. And we developed sort of a blueprint of what we were going to use later on in the phases based on the answers that they gave us. We also attended farmers markets 3 a week sometimes. We were faithfully there set up at the farmers markets in the area. We covered absentee voting, which was 6 weeks before the election. It was a lot of days of voter engagement. We went to fairs, we went to ethnic events, and we learned a lot from the voters, just in talking to people. We also hosted several events. We had a big fundraiser. The first time we scheduled it was canceled because Sean Spicer had a conflict in Ireland. But we opened up the event free of charge, and we got like 60 or 70 people to come to an event. And then a few weeks later, we had the real event with Sean Spicer, where we had a large number of people. It was a fundraiser, so we did pretty well there. We continued to learn and engage and listen to people at all these events. And then we took it to phase 2.
So the second phase, once we had sort of met folks face to face physically in the suburbs, suburban voters, and we learned a lot. People really are willing to talk. If you get to the door and they answer the questions, they're willing to talk to you and tell you what they care about. We also wanted to see what we could do online, virtual contact. Obviously, that is a big part of communication these days. So the second phase of our efforts, which we did over the summer, were a handful of social media campaigns. So the first campaign, we called it Fairfax Has a Pension Problem, and that was we have in Fairfax County, I live in Fairfax County, there's a $2.5 billion unfunded pension liability, which is a problem that's growing. It's an issue that we have been working on. Supervisor Harity is here with us. He's been leading the charge on that. And we put out a handful of videos that described the problem, featured Supervisor Harity, and really explained why this was an issue. And we promoted them on social media. As you can see, we got 24,000 views. And we got almost 3,500 engagements. And engagement is when somebody has commented, or they have liked, or they have shared, some kind of active engagement. So you can see, we got about 3,500 people to engage with this issue. It didn't cost us very much. So we targeted it at people who are interested in current issues, public affairs, things like that. Then we also did a survey. did an online survey, similar to the physical survey where we did knock doors. We asked people online, what are the biggest issues that you have? And a whole series of issues: road, transportation, schools. We have a bunch of education issues, things like that, the tone of politics. And we promoted that on Facebook and Instagram as well. And again, we targeted that to particular types of voters. We took out, for example, people that had liked Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, but we sent it out to people who, for some reason, we thought were interested in current affairs, public affairs, etc. And again, we were able to identify some, issues that kind of you would think, make sense. You have traffic congestion. Lots of development, there's enormous amounts of development, but traffic is terrible. Nobody seems to be thinking about that sufficiently, at least in our view. Rising property taxes were a big issue. And then the last issue, from an educational perspective, people were very worried about a very basic issue. Are our kids graduating from secondary school with enough knowledge and are prepared to go to college or to vocational school, to the military, go into the workforce? That was a very basic concern. It stood out. And some other issues weren't as strong. And this was really the thing people cared about. Then the last thing we did, we combined the two things. Having learned that taxes were a major issue and having learned that we could reach people online, we ran a campaign called Who is Jennifer Taxton? This was in the 10th District. Jennifer Wexton was the candidate for the Democrats, and we gave her the nickname Jennifer Taxton. But we also put together a series of videos. We put together signs, physical signs, and we put together little internet videos, things like that. Again, you can see our videos got about almost 15,000 views, and a little more than, and our posts got about 17,000 views. And again, we got over 2,600 engagements, so people were paying attention. Yeah.
And we do this on YouTube. We had our own little YouTube channel, and it was very well received. If you look in the report, I just want to mention, you guys have a copy of the report. You can see a picture of our palm party, you can see some examples of that Weston campaign, but we got a lot of positive.
And it was also a lot of fun. We'll get back to that in a second. We really did have a good time. The other thing we looked at was things that other people have done. What suburban successes can we look at? What Republican suburban successes can we point to in recent years? Questions at the end? Is this okay? Sorry. Go be first.
I don't know if you were asking us a question or...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure there are others that we didn't look at, believe me. We just found a few that we thought were sort of template, because they happen in particularly blue areas or in particularly blue situations. So, for example, the first was the Fairfax meals tax, which went down by about 8% in 2016. And you'll recall that Hillary Clinton won Fairfax County by more than 30 points. So at the same time, the Fairfax meals tax went down, something spearheaded by the Republican Party in Fairfax. Hillary Clinton is winning. So voters can sort of walk and chew gum, right? They can vote for Hillary Clinton, but they also know a bad policy when they see it.
That was a real boots on the ground effort for us, I can tell you. We did a lot of groundwork on that one.
Oh yeah, so it was a real triumph for the SCRC. The second, we looked at was John Weistad, who ran as an independent, but he did it in Arlington. And if you know Arlington, the machine of the Democratic Party there is extremely strong. So the fact he ran and he won both in a special election and in a regular election in 2014, and his big issue was he ran against the proposed Columbia Pike streetcar. Columbia Pike is a major thoroughfare in Arlington County, and this would have been very expensive. It would have ripped up the road, it would have caused traffic problems, and it probably would not have had the ridership that people predicted. And he won his election based on that. In probably as blue a county as you're going to find in Virginia, but he won. The third was Sang Lee. He won the election to the Fairfax City Council in May of this past year of 2018. And he did it, again, going door to door, knocking, talking to people. And even people who weren't necessarily very well disposed to Republicans, they said he was able to tell them, for example, they're proposing to build a massive affordable housing complex right over here across the street from you. And people would say, oh, I didn't know that. This is going to bring traffic. This is bringing congestion. It's going to affect the feel of my neighborhood. And he was able to win votes from people by finding an issue that all of a sudden it bothered them. And he came first, that's right, that's right. He was the first of eight candidates. He was number one. There are 8 candidates as number 2. And the only Republican. And he's also the first Asian American to be elected to the Fairfax City Council. So, one of the lessons, I guess, we'll get into this in a bit, but if there is a policy out there that's really rubbing people the wrong way, some bad, wasteful policy, particularly in a blue area, if it's a bad and it's a wasteful policy and the place is run by Democrats, chances are Democrats are responsible for that bad policy. And if you can figure out what that bad policy is, you can run on it and you can win an election. All these candidates, Josh Teal in Leesburg Town Council, he won election this year. He opposed the development of a golf course, and that was a hot issue toward the end, on building houses and things like that. It was a big issue. We'll hold questions to the end if that's okay. Sorry. Yeah. But definitely, now you'll be first.
Good question.
So, let me go to the next slide. So, what did we take from all the work that we did? We did the social media, we did the physical, talking to voters, we did the online polling. We did a lot of groundwork, and we also did a lot of studying and looking at other people. And the question we asked ourselves, and the theme for our efforts is, what can the state and the local party do to enact, to present, to result, to create a suburban Republican renaissance? Our goal as an organization, we would love for the suburban Republican renaissance to start in Virginia, and we would love people to point to the Republican Party of Virginia and be able to say, wow, these are the guys and gals that started the suburban Republican renaissance. We want Virginia to be in the forefront of that, and we want the Republican Party of Virginia to be in the forefront of the forefront. So that's kind of where we came at it. So, here, we came up with 11 specific recommendations based on the work that we did, based on all the work that we did over the course of 2018 to 2019 cycle. The first was for the party to really adjust its focus and go local. I think that's the place where a state party, where volunteers, where candidates can have the most impact, where we can have the most bang for our buck as a state party. It's a niche that the state party, we think, can build. State party and the local parties, together, working together to really go local, and we'll get to sort of the specifics of the quote, go local recommendation. And so the first of that recommendation, the first sort of substantive recommendation is for the state parties and the local units really to collaborate intensively on polling and figuring out what voters in the suburbs care about. We did a little bit of that. We got some trends. They were very discernible trends, but we think we should do more and more specific questions. We should poll on things like, particular issues about development. We should also drill down on particular demographics. I'll give you an example. Fairfax County has the fastest growing community in Fairfax County is the Asian American community. Well, we ought to do a poll and figure out what are the issues that the Asian American community cares about, recognizing that, you can't generalize these things. But I think, getting a sense of that and working with these communities, I think would be really helpful to be able to understand what they care about. So we can tailor our message. Once we know what people care about, then we can figure out what it is, and then we can present a Republican solution that they're interested in hearing about, because it's an issue for them.